This is the project I'm working on tonight, and when I first bought it, I didn't really know. You buy in estate sales oftentimes. You don't get a lot of time to inspect it. You just know it. You could probably do something with it. It's a good price, so you get it. Interesting thing about this desk is that two things. One, I like the legs on the side. The harp inspired legs are interesting, which kind of tells me it could have been something musical, maybe a music teacher, I don't know. But the second thing that's interesting about it is that it has hinges on the underside that would allow the legs to collapse, but at the same time it has supports to it so that it wouldn't collapse. So in order for it to collapse, you'd have to unscrew the support. So I thought it was kind of interesting that it had both situations. I don't think the supports are added later. It looks very purposeful, like it belonged there. But if someone were to move, they could collapse this down with probably taking off a couple, I guess it would be 4 screws they would have to remove. I don't know that it was ever collapsed. And unfortunately, it was definitely poorly painted, meaning there was no remorse on drippy paint. I know because I sanded a lot of the extra thick paint off. I do know that it was painted teal/green first because it's underneath all the cream paint. I don't know what the cream or white cream color was because it looked really dirty. And let's go back to the first picture. You can see it's almost like yellowed, but I was able to, I thought, well, let me start sanding it. I knew I was going to definitely sand the top. But I thought, you know what? Once I started sanding it, well, let me get to the first part. I did need to take all the screws off. Of course, they're flathead, so this is definitely an older table, there's no doubt. And you'll see some quarter sawn oak in here. On the far right picture, you can kind of see hints of that. But look underneath, you can see that they just slapped paint on it. The middle picture just shows that once I took the top off, the drawers came out, and also the top broke into 2 pieces. So the screws were holding in one piece, which really wasn't a problem for me. This is me after I get all the pieces taken apart and just sitting on the table. I have some vice grips there because I was removing some like 2-inch nails. Nails were only certain nails are holding it together. This photo shows me starting to sand, and I thought, wait a minute, I'm onto something here. I kind of like this look. So I took the idea that if I sand, 1, I can smooth out all the paint so it's not thick and gunky. But 2, this white, teal, and raw wood look, chippy paint kind of look, I thought was very cool. So I said, well, that's going to be the plan. We're just going to sand this all smooth and let the layers of paint show to tell its story, if you will. On this view, you'll see on the 2 left pictures the original, or as I purchased it, look. And you can see some of that staining there. I don't know if it's water damage, probably just, I don't know, untreated paint. I have no idea. And then on the right, you can see that I've already sanded one of the legs down. And so I think that was coming together really well. Then of course I needed to glue the top back together, and I'm using some clamps here to do that and some wood glue. So that's a step there. And you can even see underneath how the original wood looked when it was stained, and then of course it was painted. In this view, this is the from left to right, the top before I started sanding. You'll see that I'm using my belt sander, going through 2 thick coats of paint. The belt sander really helped me get down to the raw wood, and you can see on the far right, half of it sanded, and just look at that oak coming through. Looked really nice. Of course, you could strip this down, but sanding always works great for me. And one of the things with sanding it down is or stripping it down, you still have to sand it because there's all kinds of scratches. So the belt sander on this real wood allowed me to get it nice and smooth. I'm not getting rid of every dent and scratch, but 95% of it. So anyways, that's where I'm at now on this project. And so My task tonight with you is to stain the top, and then I might assemble a couple pieces together and just show you how things look. And also the third one I want to do is, let me just show you the drawers. Sanded a lot of that out, but they sanded the sides. I'm sorry, they painted the sides, the top. All I'm doing at this point is I am putting top coat on there. There was a chance that I needed to do some clear boss so it wouldn't bleed through, but I took a chance trusting that the paint would work, and I've already put one coat of satin top coat on here and it's not bleeding through, so I'm good to go. And so this has already been done with one coat. But notice the front, let's see if it'll focus. There you go. I could have taken the decorative keyhole off and stripped all the paint, but I really didn't want to interrupt the paint that's there. And so for the most part, all I'm going to do right now is take some gold gilding wax, touch my finger in there, and I will probably put another coat of top coat on this after this process. A good 2 coats is oftentimes what I'll do. And I just want to add a little bit more gold to that to help accentuate the design of this hardware. The key mechanism, hardware is still there. I don't know that it works. It's probably pretty tight. Most people aren't relying on keys nowadays anyway, but I did want to pop in a little bit more gold gilding wax on that so you can see how that turned out. So a nice little accent. Not a huge change, but just enough to get a little bit more glam and bling in there, right? All right. Doing great. All right. So we'll set that to the side. I may do some other conditioning, like with Big Mama's butter on the inside, but sometimes we'll just kind of see how it goes. The nice thing about the Big Mama's butter, it does give it a good bit of reconditioning, and I mean there's some still pencil marks in there. I usually like to use some steel wool. That would take a lot of that pencil mark out. Let's jump into the next step, and that is staining the top of this piece. So what I normally do, oftentimes when I'm working on projects and I have to stain a piece, I'm doing 2 things. Usually I'm going to paint the piece first and then stain, because sometimes the color dictates the stain. And what I mean by that is you might want a top that's more natural. You might want a top that's really dark. And so your stain colors, when you look at them, you start looking at different coloring. Things like temperature. For example, this Georgian cherry is really red. You can kind of see that. As opposed to a gray would look really neutral and nice. And then you have, let's see, I don't have these memorized, American honey. And then you can see these two. You see how there's more green in this one and this one has more red? That could really influence how your piece goes. Then you have Au Naturel, which has a little bit more of a almost drop cloth look. And then you have more of a pickling white, which is just going to almost whitewash it. I've used almost all 4 of these in the last couple months. So if you check my last post for the last couple months, you'll start seeing some of these stains come through. I don't use the Georgian cherry very often just because it is very red, but you could also layer. You could do Georgian cherry and do a second coat with gray. I mean, you could experiment that way. One of my favorites, and you'll see a lot, is the espresso, really dark. I usually only do 1 coat, but you can do 2 if you're really trying to hide some things. And then of course walnut, which is a very standard basic color and very useful as well. For me, the easy thing for me to do is to look at my project, put my swatches up against it and say which one really complements them best. Of course, probably my number 2 or number 1 color is American honey. And so that's what we're going to do, is American honey. If you go to your local retailer, you might see something like this. And again, these kind of give you a little bit larger And you can see how a stained color might look up against your project. So these can come in handy. I made these two myself because these are two of the newer colors that came out. So you can just stain some of your own wood if you want to try it that way. So open a can, stain a board, those kinds of things, that works out pretty well. So first thing I'm going to use is, this is called a application pad. And I usually only use it one time and then I toss it. And I'll show you how I do that at the end. I like gloves, keeps that stain off. This is a oil-based product. I have a couple boards underneath this one just to keep this off of my Lazy Susan so I can move the rag underneath. You can stain 6 foot wide, you can stain 3 foot wide, whatever you gotta do. But there are some nice, like I said, if you look closely, I don't know if I can bring you in closer, but there are scratches on here still. I didn't totally get rid of all of it. You might even see flecks of white, but I didn't want to totally get it down to zero. In fact, I can see a little bit of paint in there. I think it'd be great to have this story still being told. I need a little bit of a stir stick, so let me get that real quick. It's a good idea to stir this because you want to get all the chemicals. So notice I'm just going to use a little bit of a dab, and then I'm going to work as quickly is not the right word. Have a good pace to yourself because it will start drying on you. Not quickly, but maybe don't dilly-dally. Is that a Southern word? Description, dilly-dally? I'm not sure if that's where I got that from, but look at this color, it's beautiful. When I started sanding it, I really didn't know what I was getting myself into, except for maybe seeing hints of it on the bottom, but I am not restaining the bottom. Just want the top to look fantastic. Notice I am working in the direction of the grain, except for on the ends. You can do as many coats as you want. I like to have some of the wood grain showing, if not a lot of it. It's a little harder with espresso, but this American honey, it's looking great. Look at that old wood coming through. There we go, isn't that beautiful? Obviously, it's multiple boards all glued together, so you're gonna get different grains. That looks great. Like I said, there are a few little scratches, but I like it. I think it needs to look old, like it's been used. And that's all she wrote. So we'll put that cap on. You really don't use much stain at all. Oh, I just got some. All right, and then I'm just going to go ahead and this is how I'm going to dispose of that. Use my gloves to put that all together, and then I can toss that. So once this is dry to touch and then some, I will do my top coating. Couple coats of satin top coat or any top coat, and then if you want, maybe even some gator hide to really make it durable. Using a foam applicator brush would do perfect on that. So that's going to look great. Again, if we put that with this together, they just look like they were purposely made to do that. So that's very good. All right, friends, until next time, I'm Aaron here in the Bowtie Treasure Studio. You guys take care. Have a great week. Do something creative and be awesome. We'll see you later.
that's the end of the show. Make sure you subscribe and ring the bell before you go. Bye.